What's up data friends, it's Yanis here and welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use ChatGPT in order to analyze Excel data. And more specifically, we are going to do this by building a Streamlit app from scratch. We are going to follow the process you see down here. So we're going to start by loading this Excel file over here, which I got from the web. This file has some hotels booking data and the number of rows is about 120,000 rows. Then we are going to write some Python code, which we are going to go over in this video. It's this code over here. Then we are going to call OpenAI's API in order to use one of their LLMs. I think I'm going to use ChatGPT 3.5 and 4.0 mini. And then we are going to build this Streamlit app you see over here from scratch. In this app, we have some summary KPIs at the top. As you can see, we have our filters on the left-hand side. We have our chatbot over here where we can question our data. And in this case is the Excel data. And we also have our raw data over here, our filter hotel bookings data. And just to show you a live demo, I'm going to select, let's say, City Hotel. Then I'm going to select just 1 year. I'm going to select just 2 months. So I'm going to remove all this. Then I am going to select the country. I'm just going to select, let's say, Spain. I'm going to enable more data. And then I'm going to ask a question. Let's say, compare July to August. And let's see how this is going to perform. We can see it's running over here. There we go, we have our answer. So this is saying that to compare the 2 months, we're going to analyze the following metrics, and it's giving me the 5 metrics it's going to use. Then it's analyzing those metrics for July, for August, and over here it has a comparison of the two. So this is how you can use ChatGPT in order to analyze your data. And before we jump into this video, let me just say that if you're passionate about data science, then please consider liking this video, subscribing to my channel, and enabling notifications for my future videos. Right, going back to Python now, the first thing we're going to go over is the libraries we need. So for this tutorial, we're going to need Streamlit and OpenAI. So please make sure you pip install both of these libraries and then you import them. So I'm just going to run this. Then we are going to load our Excel data. I am going to upload this Excel file and the code in my GitHub page. So the link is going to be in the video description. So I create this function called load data, and I'm just reading this Excel file I have over here. I'm storing it into data, and then I'm printing the first 5 rows. There we go. We have our raw data over here. The next step now is to test the ChatGPT API. It's actually OpenAI's API. To do this, first you're going to need to make sure that you have an OpenAI key. So you will need to go on this website over here, the OpenAI website, and you need to make sure you have an account first, and then you need to create a new API key. So if you follow this link, create a new key after you create the account, and this is going to give you a new API key. Now, I'm not sure if they provide anything for free there, just because I think I paid $10 to have access to the models, but have a look, maybe they offer something for free so you can use it and experiment. The next thing I do over here is that I go over the documentation of OpenAI. So I'm just going to copy this and paste it. Over here in their GitHub page, they give loads of examples on how you can call their models. So all I'm doing here is that I'm copying this, and this is the example they have so we can call their models. I'm pasting it over here into a function actually. So I create this function called testing questions. And then basically you need to paste your API key at the top. This is going to call the client. This function is going to take just a question as an input. It's using ChatGPT 3.5 turbo, as you can see. In the role system, I'm just saying you are a helpful assistant, so I'm not actually providing any instructions. And then in the role user, I'm just passing the question that we are going to ask. And then I'm just returning the summary, which is basically the answer. Down here, I'm just running my function I just created, and the question I pass is write a story about BTC, and then I run this. And the reason we are doing this again is so you can test if you actually have access to OpenAI's API. As you can see, I got an error, and this is because I haven't pasted my key. So I'm going to quickly paste my key in, rerun it, and then cut this off the video. There you go, I have just done it now, so I got my answer over here. Bitcoin is often abbreviated as BTC, etc, etc. So this is just telling me that my API works. I can actually call an LLM from OpenAI's API. The next step now is to test this API on our data. And our data is this Excel file we have just loaded over here, this data.head. So I'm coming down here, I'm repeating exactly the same steps for these first two, where I need to paste my API key. I'm actually going to comment this out so I don't get the error. This is to initialize the client, and then down here I'm creating a function. This function is actually similar to this function. However, this is taking data_JSON, and this is going to be the data that we're going to point our LLM. It's taking a question, and it's the question we're going to ask the LLM, and it's taking the model name, so we can use different models. The prompt over here is saying, based on the following relational data, answer the question. And the data is going to be data_JSON, just because we are going to convert our Excel data into JSON format. And the question is going to be the question we are going to pass over here. In the role system, again, we are not providing any instructions. We are just saying you are a helpful assistant. And in the role user, we are passing the prompt. And the prompt is going to be this prompt over here. And in the return, we just have the answer. So in order to call our function now, the first thing I'm doing is that I'm limiting my data. The reason I'm limiting my data is because a lot of these LLMs have actually a limit on the tokens you can send to them. So if you send them way too much data, the model is not going to work. You're going to reach the limit and you're going to get an error. And this is also the reason we have all these. If I go in our Streamlit app, we have all these filters over here. And the reason we have them is so we can minimize our data as much as possible and then send that to the LLM so we can question it. Otherwise, if you send all the data to the LLM, you're going to reach the token limit and you're going to get an error. Right, going back, I'm limiting my data. I'm just selecting the first 500 rows. Again, this is for testing purposes. Then I'm turning this limited data into JSON so the LLM can actually recognize the data, understand the data. I'm going to use ChatGPT 4.0 mini model, and the question is going to be summarize the text. And the text is going to be this text we have over here. And then if I run my function, this is my function. There we go, we have our summary. It says this data consists of multiple records regarding hotel reservations at the Resort Hotel for the month July 2015, and then it continues to explain all the fields we have in this data. So this is just telling me that I can actually call our LLM on our Excel data. Right, moving on, now we need to start building our Streamlit app. At the top, we start with our libraries. So we're going to use Streamlit, Pandas, operating system, OpenAI, and then PIL. And this is so we can add these images you see over here. Next, this piece of code is exactly the same as before. We just need to pass our API key and we need to call our client. Next, I'm starting by setting the page configuration to wide layout. And if you don't add this wide layout, then your Streamlit app is actually going to be a lot narrower in the middle. But now with this wide layout, it looks a lot nicer. Going back, the next thing I do over here is that we load our Excel data, and then we call the function and we store the data under data. Next, we are using some CSS code in order to customize the styling of a lot of the visuals we have in Streamlit app. Now, it's up to you if you want to use this code over here. You can actually completely remove this code and the app is still going to work. However, I went over into ChatGPT and I've asked it to write some CSS code to change the coloring, to change the borders, the fonts, the padding of different visuals that you see over here. So for example, I have added borders over here. I have made this bold. I have made this bold. The font is a bit bigger. So all this styling is done using CSS and it's the code you see over here. Right, going down here, the next thing I do is that I'm displaying the banner image. So first I open my image. The image is called AI Pick 2, and then I do st.image and I'm passing this image. And it's actually this image you see over here, the banner image, this image over here. Down here, I'm just adding and centering my title. So my title is called Hotel Bookings Data Dashboard, and this is the title you see over here. And then if I go back, this is using the H1 class center title. So this st.markdown is actually going to go into this st.markdown. It's going to find this .center title styling, and it's going to use this styling for our title you see over here. So this is how this st.markdown works. Next, I'm adding the second image. So my second image is called AI Pick 1, and the difference is that we are doing st.sidebar.image because we are adding this image on the sidebar over here. The next thing we do down here is that we are adding a header called filter options. So this header is this header over here, filter options. Next, we are going to calculate all the values that we are going to display in all those filters. So for example, the hotel options are going to be the unique hotels we have in our raw data. So if I run this, so you can see, I think we only have 2 hotels. So let's do this up here. So if we run this, you can see we only have 2 hotels. And these 2 hotels are going to appear over here, City Hotel and Resort Hotel over here. So if I go back, I'm passing these 2 unique hotels into hotel options, and I repeat exactly the same process for all the filters we have on the left-hand side. And the next step now is to add all of these unique options into our sidebar. So for some of them, I use multi-select, and then for some of them, I use single select. And also for some of them, like the adults filter, I'm just using a slider. So the slider is basically this slider you see over here. Right, going back, the next thing we add is the data limit. Oh, it's actually another slider. So this is the other slider you see, the limit data, and this is limiting the number of rows. And the reason we do this is because, as I said at the beginning, sometimes you're going to have a lot more data that your LLM can handle. So if you want to quickly test something, you can use this limit data to limit your data set before you send it over to the LLM, and then you can use the LLM to question your data. The next thing we do over here is that we filter our data set based on all the selections we have above here. So after the user makes all of their selections in the filters option, we have to start from all of our data and apply all those filters. And this is what this query down here does. So it says from data, select all the hotels that are in the hotel filter, all the years that are in the year filter, all the arrival date months that are in the month filter, etc., etc. So we are limiting our data so the LLM can work basically. So limiting the number of tokens, and then we send it to the LLM. The next thing I do over here is that we are calculating the KPI metrics we have at the top. So these metrics you see over here. The first metric is the number of rows, then is the number of tokens. This is an estimate, actually, the number of tokens. And the reason I have this there is so we can get an estimate about how large our data set is before we send it to the LLM. Then we have the number of countries, the number of cancellations, and then the total sales over here. Right, the next step now is to actually display these cards, these 5 cards we see over here. To do this, we are going to create these 5 columns, st.columns5, and this is going to break these sections into 5 columns. And we are also passing div class equals card container, and this card container comes from st.markdown, which is these settings over here. So what I'm saying to it is that everything from here and below is going to follow these styling settings over here. So going back, I start with our first visual, which is the number of rows. I pass the number of rows that I have just created over here, and I'm also passing a specific styling to it called custom card. And if we check from st.markdown, the custom card is going to be these settings over here. So this individual card is going to follow these settings we have over here. And then I repeat the same process for all 5 of them, and this is all 5 of them over here. And down here, all we are saying is that this section has finished now, so you can disregard these styling settings, and then we can continue. The next thing we do is that we have our function for calling the model, and this function is exactly the same function as this one we have explained before. So it basically takes the raw data, it takes the question, and it takes the model name. So if we come down here, as you can see, is exactly the same. The next thing we do now is that we split the layout of the page into 2 columns again. And these 2 columns is basically going to be our chatbot on the left-hand side, and then our filtered data on the right-hand side. Going back, I'm saying on the left column now, which is basically this side, I want to add a subheader, ask a question about the data, and I also want to add a text input where we can ask our question, which is this one over here. This is where we're going to ask the question. Going back, if somebody asks the question now and he clicks the button, which is this button over here, we are going to run our query data, which is this function over here. We are going to pass our filter data to JSON. So we are actually converting our raw data to JSON before we send it to the LLM. We are going to pass the question, which is this question we have just typed in the text input, and we are going to use ChatGPT 4o mini model. And then we are going to return the answer, or it's going to give us a warning to please enter a question. And then on the column right, which is on the right hand side, I'm actually just printing a subheader, filter hotel booking data, and then I'm printing a data frame, and it's actually our filter data frame, which is this data frame over here. Right, and the final step now is to deploy this Streamlit app so we can actually view it. To do this, we are going to use Visual Studio Code. So the steps now are that we need to create a new file, a .py file, which is a Python file. We need to go back and copy all of this code we have just created and then paste it into this .py file. I'm going to rename this to Excel to ChatGPT 2 because I already have one. Rename, file, save all. And then I'm going to close this file. Then I am going to copy and paste that file in the location I need it, which is actually this one over here. Copy ChatGPT to Excel, paste over here. And then I'm going to open this file using Visual Studio Code. I actually have it open, which is this one over here. And then I'm going to open our code, which is this one over here. Now, what we need to do is that we need to paste our OpenAI key here, and then we are going to run it. So I'm just going to cut this section off quickly. There we go. I've just pasted my key over there, and now I need to create a new, let me remove this, quickly run it to see if it works, and then I need a new command prompt. And in this command prompt, I need to type in Streamlit run, and then the name of our .py file. This is actually ChatGPT 2. So let me rename it GPT2. I'm going to copy all of these, and then I'm going to paste it down here, and then click run. Oh, it says the file does not exist, so it's actually Excel. Oh, it's missing 2. Sorry, 2, and then copy this and paste it again, and this should open in the browser now. There we go. It's going to run now, and it's going to start by loading our Excel file. There we go. It worked. So I'm just going to zoom out a bit so everything looks nicer. And now we need to test it. So I'm going to type in here, write a summary of our data, and then click run. This is only using the first 200 rows, as you can see. This is why it's going to work. Otherwise, if I run it on all of our data set, it's not going to work. First, we are going to test this, and then we're going to try and filter it a bit down and ask a few different questions. There you go. We have our summary. It says we have 1,000 records of reservations. We have some summary statistics. It looks very good. We have some trends and then a summary down here. So it looks very good. Let's try and give it something more complicated. Let's do 2017. Let's do maybe city hotel. Let's do a specific country. Let's do USA, for example. Let's do only 1 month or maybe 2 months so we can compare them. May and June, for example. Let's see how many rows we have. There we go. We've managed to limit our data set. This is the estimated number of tokens. So if I ask it now to summarize these 2 months, then it should be able to work with the LLM. So I'm just going to say, let's do compare May and June in terms of total sales. Analyze their performance, and let's see what this is going to give us. There we go. We have our answer. First, it explains the methodology it followed and how it summed the sales. And then I think down here we should have the summary. There we go. So we've generated 4.2K for May and then 4.4 for June. So it says that the sales increased in June, and then performance analysis, there is some more information. So as you can see, it does a very decent job in terms of analyzing your Excel data. And let's say for non-technical users, this is going to be extremely useful. Now, if you're a data analyst, obviously you can write your own queries and analyze the data a lot better. But for non-technical users and the business, this is going to be an extremely useful tool to build for them. Right, so this is it for this tutorial. I hope you've enjoyed this video and you've gained enough value out of this video. If you feel like you did, I would really appreciate it if you click the like button, subscribe to my channel, and enable notifications for my future videos. If you have any questions, then please let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and I'm going to see you in the next video.